76ers fall to the Pelicans 112-99. Not a great game in NBA standards, not even a good one, but good for the tanking standings. We'll bring it down here on Locked On 76ers.
You are Locked On 76ers, your daily Philadelphia 76ers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into Locked On 76ers. We're your host, Keith Pompey, 76ers beat writer. I'm Kayla, Santiago, sideline reporter for the Delaware Bluecoats, the 76ers NBA G League affiliate. And this episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNBA at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. And if you're watching us on YouTube, make sure you like, comment, subscribe, in addition to wherever you listen to your podcast. And you can check us out on our free daily newsletter on LockedOnDaily.com. So Keith, 76ers fall. A lot of G League guys out there outside of Gershon Yabusele, really still in fifth in these tanking standings, but you alluded to before, a doozy of a game.
Yeah, it was horrible. I mean, it was bad. That might have been the worst game that I've seen all season. It was a G League vibe. I mean, I guess it's one of those things, if you're going to be looking for a positive, you'll say, okay, well, Justin Edwards, he shot the ball. He scored 19 points, right? Mm-hmm. But he shot the ball 6 of 18. He started off the game 4 for 7, right? So that means he struggled mightily the rest of the game. Now, he did make 5 of 9 3-pointers, right? And those 5 threes are a season high. Jared Butler was basically playing close to home. He's like from 45 minutes away from New Orleans. He also had 19 points. He had 2 rebounds. He had 2 assists and 3 steals. And he shot the ball fairly well. He was 8 for 16 from the floor, including 3 of 7 from 3. But aside from that, it was horrible. But the Sixers had a mission. It's crazy because Quentin Grimes is the guy who basically has been the one that a lot of people kept saying, bench him if you really want to lose. Well, on this night, the Sixers were tanking. They were without 10 players. The Pelicans were without their 7 players. At least 5 of them were their 5 best players. And guess what? Quentin Grimes doesn't play. So I guess from that standpoint, the 76ers finally got the assignment and shut a guy down who was the only one who was going to help them win the game. So right now they're still in 5th place with 10 games remaining. Yeah. And that was a plus. But this game was horrible to watch. Horrible to watch.
It really is crazy. I keep going back to just the beginning of the year when we were talking about one point this team being a contender to go to the Eastern Conference now, or Eastern Conference Finals. Now, granted, we're talking about a team with Joel Embiid, Paul George, and Tyrese Maxey, but when you look at this season later on down the line, from where you started to where you ended up, it's just insane. It's so far gone at this point. And the Pelicans right now, they sit at 20 wins. The 76ers just with 23. And this was a big game in terms of when you're looking at tanking standings or the reverse NBA standings too, because the Pelicans are in 4th right above the Philadelphia 76ers. Now the Pelicans coming up, they have the Warriors, then the Hornets, then the Clippers. So they have a little bit of a tougher schedule outside of the Hornets coming up in that contest. But you're right. I mean, Justin Edwards, he performed well in the first half. Jared Butler, overall a decent game with those 19 points. We'll see if the 76ers end up benching those guys after this game, because I have a feeling, Keith, that we're going to be seeing a lot more of this basketball continuing throughout this season. I mean, you got the Wizards up next, who are a team that's even worse than the Philadelphia 76ers. They are in no means trying to win. They're just trying to get through the season and trying to get as low as they possibly can in those draft lottery picks, in those reverse standings and things like that.
Yeah, I mean, right now, this is like the week of tanking. I mean, if you really want to be serious, I mean, the 76ers, what did they do? They won, last night, or lost, but they won because they lost. So then you think about it, and then you have the Wizards coming up, and then, after that, and the next couple games are going to be against Miami, and then Toronto. So these are all teams that are losing. Like, this is a stretch of games that the 76ers have to lose. But the crazy part is, heading into Tuesday, the 76ers have the second easiest schedule in the NBA, whereas the Toronto Raptors have the toughest. So the Sixers really have to lose these games and make a conscious effort to lose them and by resting players, because if not, Brooklyn could have sole possession of that final spot. So yeah, this is the week of I would say tankathon, but that's already out there. But this is strictly tank mode right about now when it comes down to the Sixers.
Yeah, it's a race to tank essentially, because when you're looking at it, the 76ers with that easier schedule, you're looking at the players that have played well in the Justin Edwards, in the Jared Butler, which we saw last night. And you're saying, oh boy, you don't want those guys to, get anything going against teams like the Wizards, or if Quentin Grimes does come back. And Gershon Yabusele is still out there and playing some games too for Philadelphia. So when is the time to shut him down? It is crazy just the point that we're at in the year right now. But when you're looking at it, the 76ers are truly focused on getting into that lottery, getting a top pick, and possibly being even in a situation they'll get number one. Now, I don't see that happening, and I've said that before. I think Cooper Flagg is going to the team in the Wizards or Utah. I think that's where he ends up landing if they get the number one pick in the NBA draft this year. But at the same side, you don't know. Sixers dropped their fifth straight and finished a 6-game trip 1 for 5. This team is just so tough to watch. And right now, I think the one thing too, Keith, when you have an easier schedule compared to the teams that you're in the tank race with, you're once again, as we've alluded to before, going back to those players that want to show something. We just saw Marcus Bagley being granted another hardship 10-day contract, essentially. Now, he didn't have a good performance, just 2 points, but you're looking at guys like that, Ricky Council as well, Adem Bona even, that are trying to perform, Jeff Dowtin, so that they can show other teams or even the 76ers that they can do something and put something out there. So I think they do have to be careful, because what you don't want to do is sneak in a win and then all of a sudden Brooklyn keeps on falling and filtering down and they're ahead of you in those NBA reverse standings.
Yeah, and I'm even starting to question, they're looking at these guys to see if they can help them, or they're just bringing in guys now that can help them. Because, Marcus Bagley, I get it, they want to award him for what he's done at the G League, right? But unless Brissett knee is really messed up, why not just extend him for his second 10-day? Now, Okiki, tomorrow, today is his 10th day. It's going to be his second 10-day. So they're probably they're going to release him, at midnight on Tuesday, right?
Yeah.
So then maybe you can go out and bring O'Shea Brissett back. But, when you bring in Bagley the day of the game and say, hey, I know you played on Sunday with the Blue Coats, but we're going to bring you up to Sixers. I mean, you're playing a guy in the first half, right? He played 18 minutes. Is it more like, okay, I'm just going to bring this body in, knowing that the other guy is more familiar just because he's been here 10 days? He has a little bit more of a rapport with all the players, because I know Bagley has a rapport with some of them because he played in the G League team, right?
Right.
But, it just seems to me it's like, okay, we got to fill the roster, but how are we going to strip this thing down enough to ensure that we are going to lose? How are we going to do that? It just, I don't know. It's just kind of mind-boggling a little bit. And sometimes we got to think this way. Just because, let's face it, their goal was to lose this game, because both teams were tanking, and their goal was to lose this game, and they were successful.
Yeah, they were. It was a rough game. I'm going to continue on the Bagley track when we come back. 112-99, 76ers fall. Still fifth in the NBA reverse standings right now in this tank race to try to get the best possible pick for them in the NBA draft. So we'll touch on that and more when we come back on the other side right here on Locked On 76ers. Ever check your bank account and wonder, where did all my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in, your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app, it's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place, so you stop just managing your money and start building your wealth. Surprising insights. When I started using Monarch, I realized just how I was spending on food delivery, which usually is a big issue for me. A little bit of other things that I like to do, read DoorDash and things, and I got to cut back on that spending. I budget smarter and save more thanks to Monarch Money. All in one convenience. Instead of juggling multiple apps, you can use Monarch Money to check your finances, track spending, and even plan long-term goals. Easy collaboration. Managing money with your partner is smoother than ever. You can track shared and personal accounts, set goals, and stay on the same page without the stress. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNBA on monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com. Code LOCKEDONNBA for half of your first year off. Once again, go check out Monarch Money today. So I want to stay on this Marcus Bagley train just for one moment, because I've had a chance to cover him down in the G, and this is no disrespect to Marcus whatsoever. I was a little surprised when I saw this call up, and Marcus has been playing really, really well as of late. But there's a lot of guys on the Blue Coats that average more overall, that Nick Nurse has talked about highly a little bit more when he's been at those games. Now, granted, he's been averaging 14 points per game and 10 rebounds per game over the last 10, had 6 double-doubles as well. But overall, averages just over 11 points per game. He's a hustle guy. He's kind of a glue guy. He goes out there. He's able to go after the loose balls. So when you're looking at calling a guy up like that in a situation where they called him up on a short turnaround, you're not really looking to win games. He's not going to be a big difference maker. The Sixers know exactly what they're doing. I think Brissett was honestly a better option for them to try to win games. If clearly that's not what they're trying to do here. They don't extend that. They bring Bagley up. And like I said, Keith, it's no disrespect to Marcus, but it's a situation where you're looking at it and you're saying, okay, well, if the 76ers can sit a Quentin Grimes and let go of another guy that maybe has been doing decent for them and bring up a Marcus Bagley on a short turnaround here, then they have to lose the game, right? Then there's going to be a loss out there. Then it's really going to be a G League game. And the Sixers, they're having their way. At least they did last night against the Pelicans.
Exactly. And that's what it was about. I mean, you know, and it's funny. I wouldn't be surprised if they bring Brissett back, but also I wouldn't surprise me if they just brought in another center or something like that. I mean, you know what I'm saying? It's just like whatever. But it was a little surprising that they brought him in, because here's the thing. Yeah, we're talking about averaging a double-double, but you know, right now this team needs a scorer. They need a guy to do these other things. And in the G League, averaging 12 points and getting 12 points in the G League isn't hard to do. Like, you know, these guys who are up here now, Jeff Dowtin is a lethal scorer in the G League, right?
Yeah, right.
You know, he's an all-star, like things like that. So that's something. And then look, here's the thing. That's another topic, Kayla. Like, you know, so Jeff Dowtin has 3 games remaining. The 76ers have 10 games left. Jeff Dowtin only has 3. And it's crazy because they really need him now. Like, they really depend on him. It wasn't like before when you had Tyrese Maxey playing and all this other stuff. You know, now they really need Jeff because of his point guard's ability. But he only has 3 games remaining on his 2-way contract. And so y'all to know, the reason why he only has 3 left is because you're only allowed to be active for a total of 50 games if you sign at the beginning of the season. Other than that, is a prorated amount. Now, he signed before the season, so he's been active a total of 47. So I wouldn't be shocked if they benched him this upcoming game against the Washington Wizards.
Yeah, and I'm curious too, because so in the Blue Coats, when we look at their schedule, their last home game and their last game of the year is on Saturday, March 29th, which is also when the 76ers take on the Heat. So do you have him play, and it's the same time the Blue Coats play at 7, 76ers at 7:30. So do you have him play in Delaware and then maybe bring him back after that? But then you still have the Raptors, the Knicks, the Bucks, the Timberwolves, the Heat again, the Wizards again, the Hawks, and the Bulls. So it's a crazy situation where the 76ers, I feel as though they might feel they've timed it out perfectly, saying, okay, yeah, well, now we really can't have Jeff Dowtin anymore because he does have 3 games left to play in the NBA. But then you're putting an even worse product out there, Keith, that we've already been seeing, which is crazy to even think about. I feel as though the 76ers should just be allowed to forfeit these games at this point. I know that's not how the NBA works, but at the same time, you're talking about now having a guy that's been handling the ball and bringing up the ball and doing what he needs to do to get other guys involved in a team that's G League players is not going to be able to do that now because he has those 3 days left. So the 76ers, their timeline's working out for them. But as I alluded to in the beginning, I think we're going to be seeing a worse product. I know we're going to be seeing a worse product of the 76ers team as these 10 games kind of roll around because all of this is starting to just add up right now.
Yeah, it really is. It's bad. But again, we're talking about it. They have Washington they're going to play. They're going to play Miami. And they're going to play Toronto the next 3 games. And then from there, they play the Knicks, and I believe is Minnesota. So, those are going to be 2 tougher ones. But this week coming up, we're going to see a lot of teams playing without their best players. I mean, we are. And Miami, they're horrible. Washington is already, it looks like, unless they go on a major scoring, a major like win streak, they're a team that's assured of the bottom 2. So they're going to be fine. But yeah, it's going to be ugly. It's going to be a hard to watch. I mean, last night's game was hard to watch. I'm not going to lie to you. I mean, when you're looking at this game, there was one point in the first quarter where the 76ers were shooting like 29%, and they were only down by 3. It was horrible on both sides. It was a bad game.
No, it's just so crazy to think this is to know, and this is what we're seeing right now. And you talk about the Wizards as well. I mean, right now they're in first place in these NBA reverse standings when we look at it, and we'll keep talking about that on the other side too. But they have the 76ers coming up, then the Pacers, then the Nets. The Nets, another team that's trying to go back and forth with the Sixers in terms of that top 6 as well. Then the Heat, the Kings, the Magic, the Celtics, the Pacers, the Sixers again, the Bulls, and the Heat. So some tough games in there, a kind of a mix of both for the Wizards, but they're another bad team that's still going to get that top 2. So they're exactly where they want to be at this point. Once again, 76ers fall 112-99. We're going to keep touching on NBA race to tank right now when we come back right after this. All right. So the 76ers, when we look at their schedule going ahead, of course, they have the Wizards coming up. This is the game that we're looking at for Wednesday, March 26th at 7 p.m. As you alluded to, the Heat, a bad team, the Raptors above them in the standings. But it always gets interesting when you kind of look at these other teams that they're playing in terms of the Bucks, in addition to the Timberwolves and the Knicks, because the Knicks right now in a situation, Keith, where it looks like they're going to stay in that 3rd spot unless the Pacers can possibly jump them before we get to the NBA playoffs. I don't think that the Knicks are going to catch the Celtics at this point of the year. Then you look over to the Western Conference and the Timberwolves. They're a team that right now realistically could go from, then we've talked about this before, could go from 8th place in the Western Conference, they could jump all the way possibly to 4th because they're only 2 games back of the Lakers, who are currently in 4th place. So the Western Conference is juggling a lot of things. So out of the teams, Keith, that are bad and are trying to tank, the Sixers also play those squads that might even play their main guys because of where they're at currently in their standings. Now, they could probably sit their starters and their benches could come in like we saw with OKC and the 76ers and still win. But there are a few games in there that we're looking at that we're saying, okay, these teams might put all the strengths against the Philadelphia 76ers because that's a must-win game and a game they know they can come in and win and try to work up those standings just a little bit. So if I'm those other teams, I'm saying, thank goodness the Sixers are on my schedule to be able to finish out the year.
Yeah. I mean, these are, especially for a team like the Knicks. You know, the Knicks is a team that's been struggling, right? I mean, you look at it, like they lost to the Spurs and they lost to the Hornets before they beat the Wizards, right? And then before that, they beat the Heat, but they lost to the Warriors, you know, they lost to the Clippers. So, I mean, this is a team that is basically playing a little bit above 500 basketball they're playing 500 basketball over their last 8 games, but they have an easy schedule. So they're licking their chops against the 76ers. This is a game that will help them get right, you know, to play the way that they want to, but get a nice victory. But you're correct that this is a game that they're chomping at the bits. The same with, you know, Minnesota, you know, and the same with the Milwaukee Bucks when they play them later on. It's like they're all looking at this like, yeah, this is going to help us with positioning to make the playoffs, because all these teams are, you know, in a tough battle. I mean, we're looking at it where Minnesota is a game ahead of the Detroit Pistons, right? For that 5th spot. They want to keep that. They really do. Because, you know, and then New York, you know, wants to stay in the 3rd spot. So, yeah, there's a lot that these teams are motivated and fired up about the fact that they get to play the Sixers.
Yeah, I mean, for Milwaukee, too, as you alluded to, in that 5th, they could also possibly move up to where the Pacers are. I mean, they're 2 games back. They, of course, both teams still got to play their full schedules, but Bucks don't want to fall down. They could possibly move up with the Pacers slow down. So there's a lot of things that can happen in the Eastern Conference in addition to the Timberwolves over in the West. But for the 76ers, they have coming up the Washington Wizards I think this will be a game of maybe locked on 76ers, not top 10 lists, because the Pelicans right now the Pelicans Sixers might be number 1 of the season. The Wizards Sixers, Keith, I'm going to go out on a limb and say right now, I think it might be number 1, maybe even number 1 of the season, because you're looking at, you know, will Jeff Dowtin play in that game? Do the 76ers want to have him maybe later on with only those 3 games happening? What are you going to kind of do from there if you don't have him in the lineup? I'm putting that as locked on 76ers number 1, not top 10 games of the season, because I think this could get a little bit ugly coming up against Washington.
It could be. You know what would be funny? It would be funny if what they do with Jared Butler. And the only reason why I'm saying this is because they know he's familiar with Washington.
Yeah.
And if they say, hey, we want a Jared Butler relaxed game, take the night off, it's like, oh, you don't want him to like torch his former teammates, right? But yeah, that you're right. This is going to be a crazy game.
And I know a lot of people are going to have their popcorn watching it for probably the worst reason, seeing where, you know, these tank standings, you know, this race to tank will continue to come, because yeah, you're right. Jared Butler's going to say, listen, I got to give it my all. I don't know where I'm going to be next season at this point. Let me put it all out there against former team. I mean, maybe even sit Justin Edwards. I don't know. Maybe he scored a little bit too much. Will Quentin Grimes be in the conversation? If Grimes plays, we might be having a different conversation, because he might go off for 50 against the Washington Wizards. But I think they just need to sit him the rest of the year. That's my 2 cents on Quentin Grimes. So this is going to be an ugly game. It was an ugly game last night against the Pelicans, 112-99 your final, as the 76ers next up, they have the Washington Wizards. That's at home in Philadelphia at the Wells Fargo Center. So, hey, if you want to go to the game for a decent price. Bring the family out there, catch a laughter, have a little knee slapper, kind of look at these teams and saying, oh, who's going to fall in this contest that are not top 10? Maybe both teams won't even get to 100. Keith, they might have to bring back the whole Big Mac special and teams will get to 100 at the Wells Fargo Center. They might need that in Philadelphia. So if y'all are in for that, maybe head over to Wells Fargo. Once again, that tip-off's on Wednesday at 7 p.m. And we will have you guys after the game on that one, too, to see just how low it gets for the Philadelphia 76ers and the Wizards, too, as they're the worst team currently in the NBA. Well, the race to tank continues for the Philadelphia 76ers. We appreciate you guys all tuning in. For Keith Pompey, I'm Kayla Santiago saying so long, and we will see you guys next time.